What is going on, guys? Hey, I wanted to bring you a video featuring Dr. Phil from his new primetime show. And he is interviewing a woman with 25 years experience in the HR field. And he's also talking to a black pastor and a black professor about DEI. And for everyone who doesn't know what that is, DEI stands for diversity, equity, and inclusion. And again, that means they prop certain people up over the top of other people because, again, they're wanting certain people, a certain demographic, increased in their numbers of employees. So again, if they have 5% black employees that work there and they want 25%, they wind up excluding, the white candidates for those jobs. And when they do so, they're excluding, again, 60% of the population. So again, it's impossible to get, the most qualified candidate for that job. Because again, you're excluding the majority of people and only looking at, a very small percent of the population for the job. So again, and a lot of times what they do is they also made the qualifications lower for the black and brown employees. But this HR lady with 25 years experience, she is a proponent of DEI. And the black pastor and the black professor are not. But guys, watch this.
Our country is getting more and more diverse. If you look at the census, in the next couple of decades, white people will no longer be the majority. So DE&I is one of the most significant and important aspects of HR. So it's diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we need to be able to understand how to effectively work together so people feel valued and contribute to the organization in a positive way. I really don't want to come off as a white savior. As somebody with privilege, as a white woman, it is easier for me to speak up in an organization because there is usually going to be less bias towards somebody who looks like me. So when I hear that DEI is sort of a liberal agenda, that goes back to the fact that DEI is not charity work. Businesses are helping them get in touch with their customers, they're improving their employer brand, and they're able to be more creative and innovative based on their diverse population. I have a hard time accepting that anyone thinks that these are negatives. DEI is about building more inclusive processes. To me, the idea of no DEI, it just doesn't make sense to me.
Guys, man, the thing that kind of stuck out to me that she said right off the bat is that the white people are not going to be the majority in the next couple of decades. And again, they might not be, but it doesn't matter. It truly does not matter whether or not white people are the majority or not. Again, you want the best candidates for that job, no matter what their color is. So again, you're not going to exclude white people from those jobs just because, again, you want to fill certain roles with black and brown people. Again, it does not matter what the demographics percentages say for this country. Like at Harvard, Asian people are much higher represented as the proportion of their population. I think Asian people are 5% of the population, whatever, 4%. Again, but they're way overrepresented in colleges, especially, Ivy League schools. They do well. They test well. They study well. They do well. They place well. But again, she's more concerned with the optics. And that's really what the problem is with DEI. They're more concerned with the optics of diversity instead of actually getting people that are the best qualify for those roles. Again, they're more concerned with how things look. And again, that really kind of talks to me, at least to me, big time about what's going on right now in the world. People are more concerned with looking good, appearing to be inclusive, appearing not to be racist, not to be sexist, not to be homophobic, whatever, transphobic. They're more concerned with the optics, how things look. They don't care about, about whether or not something works, whether or not something is right. Rightness doesn't care. They don't care about that. They care about how something looks. Because again, it's all about posturing.
Welcome.
Thank you.
When you say diversity, what do you mean?
For me personally, and I think for the industry in corporate, we are looking at it broadly. We're looking at diversity as bringing in different backgrounds, whether that is industry experience, race, gender, sexual orientation.
Well, now, wait a minute. When you're doing diversity training, you're not talking about industry experience. You're talking about racial diversity. You're talking about gender.
We're talking about all of the above. I think good diversity programs are really about broadening perspectives within an organization. And I've certainly worked for organizations where, we only want people from a specific background. And that can be very limiting and impact what your organization looks like in terms of race and gender.
Okay, well, you just said what it looks like. Mm-hmm. And that's what one of the big criticisms is that it's what it looks like, that there's diversity of bodies, that you've got a certain number of one from a certain race, another race, another race. Has nothing to do with diversity of ideology, has nothing to do with diversity of background. It has to do with quotas.
Right.
True?
No, I have never worked in an organization where we've had quotas.
I've employed as many as 1,000 people, mm-hmm. Most of them union, in the entertainment industry, and I'll damn sure tell you that there is a body count going on. Mm. Does DEI work?
Yes. I have seen tremendous success in...
Are you aware there are 100 studies that suggest that it doesn't work?
There are also studies show that it does work. If you look at the Harvard Business
those are
Review,
done,
Deloitte.
Well, let's look at the Harvard Business Review, because they actually did a study. The study found that over 5 years, 800 plus businesses consistently lost diversity in their managers, that no improvement in the proportions of white women, blacks, Hispanics, and Asians, and the participants feel external power trying to control their behavior. Mm-hmm.
So I can only lean on my experience. So I've worked for 13 different companies throughout the course of my career. Uh-huh. And what I have seen is that employee engagement increases, employees care about diversity programs, candidates care. I'm coming from a recruiting background. Candidates ask about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and it is important to them. There have been studies on Glassdoor that have shown that a good percentage of people will not accept an offer with a company that doesn't have intentional DE&I programs and initiatives.
That's what the issue is. Man, they're more concerned with how that looks. That's all they care. That's all they care about. Because again, they're proving it right there. She said, there are candidates that won't even come to work for a company that does not have a DEI program. Well, again, whether it works or not, they don't care. They want that program because, again, it's about how that looks. And again, she admitted that in a way to Dr. Phil. It's all about how something looks. They have to virtue signal. Again, it does not matter whether or not they got the right candidate or the best candidate for that job. Again, I guarantee you, everyone with DEI programs is not getting the best candidate for that job, because what you're doing is you're whittling down the pool of candidates that you can choose from. And when you do so, I guarantee you, you are not getting the best candidate for that job.
Talk to me, Pastor.
Okay, so
Preach on, brother.
yeah. Well, a few things. If DEI works anywhere, it has to work everywhere. Let me tell you where DEI does not work: the NBA and the NFL. Where are the Asian, Latino, and Hispanic basketball and football players? Where are the black guys in the National Hockey League? Those businesses are performance-based. It really comes down to, Dr. Phil, the issue of justice. And if you really want to go deep to the heart of this, and when I say that DEI treats the symptom but not the sickness, America is in a new civil war right now. The first civil war was the North versus the South. The new civil war is a war of ideologies concerning justice. And it's really going to come down to who gets to define what justice is, whether that's biblical justice or social justice. When moral law stands alone and DEI initiatives are based upon that, somebody gets to pretend that they are God.
I want to
Truly get to understand it doesn't matter what somebody's skin color is, doesn't matter. It should be based on performance, how well they do. And again, he brought up a very good point about the NBA and the NFL. You know, back about a year ago or so, I was speaking about this, and I said that, again, I'm a middle-aged man with bad knees, with especially one. But again, I need to have a place in the NBA. Number one, I was never that good at basketball anyways. And, I enjoy playing it, but, the fact of the matter is, we have truly got to understand, I don't belong in the NBA. I don't. I'm of somewhat average height, maybe a little bit taller. And, again, I'm a middle-aged man. I'm in decent shape, but I'm a middle-aged man. I'm way older than what these guys, I would never do well. Even when I was younger, I wasn't a good ball player. Not basketball anyways. But, the fact of the matter is, we have truly got to understand, everything should be based upon performance, everything. Again, we want the best candidates for that job. That's it. That's all we need to be worried about. But the thing is, if you're wanting to figure out who gets that job, then again, you have to have so many black people, so many brown people, so many women, so many. Again, what you're doing is you're playing God.
I want to bring another important voice to this conversation. Eric Smith. He's an associate professor of rhetoric at York College of Pennsylvania and a public policy research scholar. He's joining us virtually. Eric says DEI should be called EMC, Equality, Merit, and Colorblindness. Eric, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I just need to say that the EMC that you mentioned was actually created by Christopher Rufo. He started that going on. And those principles are things that I like, but I would call DEI, contemporary DEI anyway, critical social justice.
You say that we're told demanding merit hurts minorities. Why is that being taught? Why is that being preached?
Well, it's being preached because people think that minorities don't have the same opportunities to acquire the same education as white people. Also, in oversimplification, what we should do then is not get rid of merit. We should help those students acquire those resources.
Okay, now, you got criticized for saying that you thought Black students should be taught standard English. Talk about that.
Well, that took place on a listserv in my field of rhetoric and composition, which is better described as woke studies at this point. And I'll be happy to come back on the show and explain that one day.
Okay.
But what I said was, I was pushing back on the idea, the almost universal idea, that teaching standard English to Black kids was a form of racism because you're asking them to speak white. I, as a pragmatist, say, well, you're giving them tools so that they can go out into the world and be happy, successful, and fulfilled. They're not replacing however they talk. They're adding standard English to however they talk. But that was not received well.
Why not?
Well, again, you have to learn proper English. If you tell them that, they're like, well, that's an attack on us, our culture. You're racist. Or if you're black, you're part of that white supremacy, racist, systemic racist mindset. And no, they're not. No, they're not. I mean, again, I'm white. I'm from the South. And we understood. Again, we had to learn proper English now. When we get out of school, a lot of times we would talk a lot of this and talk about going over yonder and whatever. I mean, again, people, that's what they spoke. But they learned English in school. And again, proper English. But again, like I said, nowadays, man, in the black culture, if you say anything about the way they talk or what they're learning is wrong, they're like, again, you can't say that. You can't say that because, again, if you do, you're racist. It's all about, again, race.
Let me ask you, we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion. What is the definition of equity?
It's a great question. And I think we confuse equity with equality. And equality means that everybody is treated the same. And equity means that we need to look at, for example, there's a great visual of a short person and a tall person, and they're both looking over a fence, and they have the same block to stand on. And the tall person, of course, can see over the fence, but the short person has not been lifted up enough to see over the fence. And so when we're talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion, we're talking about the fact that some demographics come to the table and have to overcome racism, unconscious bias, misogyny. And so how do we help level the playing field for everyone?
Okay, so that means you're trying to create equality of outcome.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I hear you saying about playing God.
Yeah.
How do you create equality of outcome? When people aren't the same. You're right. Some people are shorter, some people are taller looking over that fence. They can't both play in the NBA.
Right.
You can't create equality of outcome. What gives a DEI program the right to come in and try and alter the nature of things to create equality of outcome? That's been tried. That didn't work. That was called Marxism.
What I would say is that, I've been in the recruiting space for 25 years. And the way we have done recruiting traditionally relies heavily on things like networks, referral programs. And so who are we going to refer? We're going to refer the people that we know who are in our neighborhoods or who play golf with the CEO. And so you start to have a population in your organization that looks very much the same. And so what I'm advocating for is more intentional programs that reach a broader audience.
All the more reason for merit. If you apply to or stick to meritocracy, it doesn't matter whether somebody is playing golf with the CEO or not. It's about matching those values, those skills that are necessary for the job. Your argument proves that we do need meritocracy.
Everything should be based on merit. It should be. Because again, we have to understand the majority of things used to always be that way. That's the way it was, and that's the way it should be. Again, man, if you know somebody, like, one of my first full-time jobs was because I knew somebody who knew somebody else who was looking for somebody at a plant, a minimum wage job. Again, they barely paid over minimum wage. And I worked on a plant. It was 100 degrees and I scooped fiber all day and I put it in bags and I heat sealed it and I put it on pallets and I stretch wrapped it and everything else. That was it. That was it. It's like, we had this young kid that we know, named Eric. He's 18 years old. He wants to, get his first job. That was it. But the only way the people they give somebody a job because they know of somebody or they heard of somebody. In most situations that I've been around, is because they've been in the industry for many years and they're known. People know who they are and they have a good reputation. And they get hired because of that reputation, not because they knew somebody, but because they heard of somebody. And again, they do a good job. They would bring value to their organization. And again, that's the way things should be. That is merit. That is based upon merit. But we don't need to have programs devised where, we have to hire so many people because they have a certain skin color or because, they're female, whatever. Again, that is the opposite of merit. Because what you're saying is we have to look the other way when it comes to these candidates over here. Even though they might be more qualified, we can't look at them because they're not the right skin color. But guys, man, if you would, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment down below. Thanks. You son of a.